In the summer of 1944, the world held its breath as a war-weary Europe became the battleground for a decisive struggle between two superpowers. Amidst the chaos of D-Day, one division would stand as a symbol of fanatical loyalty and unwavering determination. They were the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend, a force comprised of youthful zealots who believed in the cause of the Third Reich. June 6, 1944, is a day etched in the annals of history as the beginning of the end of Nazi Germany. On the beaches of Normandy, a daring invasion was underway, codenamed Operation Overlord. As the Western Allies unleashed their might upon the coast of France, the fate of Europe hung in the balance. Amongst the chaos, the 12th SS Panzer Division stood as a formidable barrier, their tanks poised for battle, yet they remained frustratingly immobile. The 12th SS was the closest panzer division to the landing beaches, their engines growling, waiting for crucial authorization from Hitler himself. Every second that passed felt like an eternity, and with each passing moment, the window of opportunity was slipping away. As the 12th SS awaited orders to move to the front lines, a decision that would come more than 12 hours after initial reports of the Allied landings in Normandy. This delay was primarily attributed to the complex and often perplexing chain of command within the German military leadership during World War II. Before the 12th SS Panzer Division received its marching orders, Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt had issued an order to deploy more than half of the division to address what was believed to be a parachute landing threat near Lisieux on the coast. To their chagrin, it was later discovered that these supposed paratroopers were, in fact, decoys employed as part of Operation Titanic, a clever ruse devised by the Allies to divert German forces and sow confusion. The 12th SS Panzer Division's journey towards Normandy and the British-Canadian landing beaches at Sword and Juno was fraught with formidable challenges, primarily stemming from the relentless onslaught of Allied fighter-bomber attacks. While the losses incurred by the Allies in terms of aircraft were not substantial, the havoc wreaked upon the division's vehicles was significant enough to disrupt their meticulously planned timetable. The unceasing waves of Allied fighter-bombers unleashed destruction from the skies, rendering numerous vehicles inoperable and leaving trails of wreckage in their wake. This unexpected and ferocious air assault inflicted considerable delays upon the 12th SS Panzer Division, impeding their progress toward their designated assembly area. It wasn't until the late evening hours of June 6, 1944, that the vanguard units of the 12th SS Panzer Division finally managed to reach their assembly point near Evrecy. This arduous and chaotic journey, marked by aerial bombardments and the resultant vehicle wreckage, had taken a toll on the division's timeline. But all was setting the stage for a grueling battle ahead. On June 7, 1944, at 10 a.m., Kurt Meyer's 25th SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment, accompanied by 50 Panzer IV tanks from Max Wünsch's 12th SS Panzer Regiment, positioned themselves northwest of Caen. Their mission was twofold: to staunch the advance of Canadian infantry and tanks, and to break through to the nearby coast, a strategic objective of utmost importance. Meyer meticulously orchestrated his forces, originally planning to launch their assault. The urgency of the situation forced his hand around 2 p.m., when Canadian forces, oblivious to the impending threat, closed in. As the Canadian tanks ascended a ridge near Francoville, they unknowingly walked into a carefully laid trap. A German panzer company, biding its time with disciplined patience, suddenly struck, taking the Canadians completely by surprise. The 12th SS Panzer Regiment's attack hit the Canadian flank like a thunderbolt. In the chaotic aftermath, the Canadian infantry was left with little choice but to hastily retreat to Authie, pursued relentlessly by Meyer's 3rd Battalion. With Authie and Francville swiftly falling under German control, their sights were set on their next objective, the village of Buron, a mere kilometer to the north, launched their assault with the intended support of the 21st Panzer Division. However, the 21st Panzer Division found itself unable to disengage from a fierce engagement with the British 3rd Infantry Division, still entrenched at Couvres. Consequently, the right flank of the 12th SS Panzer Division was exposed, and Canadian tanks probed this vulnerability, only to meet a devastating response from the anti-tank platoon of the 1st Battalion. During these intense engagements, the 12th SS fought fanatically. Fighting from hedgerow to hedgerow, they managed to capture approximately 150 prisoners from the North Nova Scotia Highlanders and the crews of the 27th Tank Regiment, Sherbrooke Fusiliers. According to Lieutenant Colonel Mel Gordon, the 27th Tank Regiment incurred a heavy toll, losing 28 Sherman tanks, while the North Nova Scotia Highlanders suffered the loss of 245 men on June 7th. The 25th SS Panzergrenadier Regiment also sustained casualties, amounting to around 300 men. Furthermore, the 12th SS Panzer Regiment saw 15 of its tanks destroyed during the relentless fighting. On the late hours of June 7, 1944, the 26th SS, led by SS Obersturmbannführer Wilhelm Mohnke, arrived on the battlefield, adding a fresh dynamic to the ongoing conflict. The 12th and Kurt Meyer's earlier offensive had managed to push back a segment of the Canadian advance. However, to the west of Meyer's position, the 7th Canadian Infantry Brigade had seized control of a cluster of small villages, penetrating 2 miles into the German defensive line. With a strategic vision in mind, the 26th Panzergrenadier Regiment moved discreetly behind Meyer's regiment, positioning themselves to the west. Following meticulous planning and preparation for a formidable assault, the 1st Battalion initiated an attack toward Nory-en-Bessin, a town defended by the Regina Rifles of the 7th Canadian Infantry Brigade, 3rd Canadian Division. Their mission was to overwhelm the Canadians and create a substantial wedge, effectively isolating them from the British division positioned to the west. Regrettably, no comprehensive reconnaissance of the Canadian positions had been conducted, and the German infantry found themselves thrust into a maelstrom of defensive fire emanating from well-entrenched Canadian positions. The ensuing battle was marked by a relentless exchange of gunfire as both sides fought tenaciously for control of the strategic ground. The 12th SS attack, initiated at the early hour of 3:30 a.m. on June 8, 1944, initially met with limited success. The various companies within the attacking battalion struggled to coordinate their movements effectively against the resolute Canadian defenders. Despite suffering significant casualties, the relentless Canadian artillery fire and the heavy machine guns of the Cameron Highlanders of Ottawa inflicted a devastating toll on each attacking company of SS troops. The Regina Rifles, determined and steadfast, held their ground, forcing the 1st Battalion of the German Division to retreat. In the wake of these early engagements, the division faced criticism for its inadequate performance during the initial days of the Normandy campaign. Despite the ferocity of the 12th SS counterattacks, they were unable to achieve their objective of repelling the attacking Allied forces and pushing them back into the sea. Meanwhile, British troops had advanced on both flanks of the positions firmly held by the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division, establishing a strong defensive line that would serve as a base for future operations. This period was marked by a series of local attacks from both sides, with neither gaining a significant strategic advantage. The German defensive perimeter around Caen continued to tighten, resulting in mounting casualties for both Allied and German forces. On June 14th, the 12th SS headquarters, located approximately 2 kilometers southwest of Caen-en-Venois, came under naval gunfire, resulting in the death of their commander, Fritz Witt, as well as several other senior officers. In response, the High Command appointed Kurt Meyer as the new commander of the division. It's worth noting that some sources suggest he may have been the youngest divisional commander on any side during the war. The 12th SS, positioned in detachments north and west of Caen, faced severe shortages of ammunition, fuel, and equipment, mirroring the broader challenges of the German army at the time. To the north of Caen, some of its panzer units supported unreliable formations like the 16th Luftwaffe Field Division. In the west, a flak battery, 15 tanks, and the 1st Battalion, 26th SS Panzergrenadier Regiment defended the crucial Carpiquet airfield. The 3rd Canadian Division halted major combat operations until July, with just one significant engagement on June 11th at Le Mesnil-Patry. During this encounter, the battle was fierce, and brutal fighting ensued for the 12th SS. An overwhelming amount of Allied armor was present, and they inflicted substantial casualties on the Queen's Own Rifles of Canada and the 1st Hussars, 6th Armored Regiment, resulting in the loss of 51 Sherman tanks. On the same day, the 46th Royal Marine Commando launched an assault on Rotz, resulting in intense and brutal combat. The scene was described as a fierce battle, with both sides fighting tenaciously and suffering heavy casualties. The combatants were found dead side by side, often locked in deadly embraces. Tanks, destroyed and smoldering, bore witness to the ferocity of the clashes. Following these engagements, the subsequent 2 weeks until the end of the month were relatively calm as both sides were exhausted. However, the constant Allied artillery, naval bombardments, and air attacks continued unabated. Major operations for both sides resumed in July, with the 12th SS successfully defending the Carpiquet airfield, referred to by the Canadians as Operation Windsor. Nonetheless, Carpiquet village fell as only a limited force of 50 men was available to defend it against an entire Canadian battalion. Over the course of the next 4 days, the 12th SS stubbornly resisted repeated attacks launched by the British First Corps. As the situation grew increasingly dire, the Royal Air Force resorted to a massive bombardment. His devastating bombing campaign inflicted significant damage on the city and further disrupted the already strained German supply lines. Nevertheless, Kurt Meyer, displaying a resolute determination, refused to withdraw and continued to fiercely defend the city. Despite Meyer's tenacity, the British forces managed to breach into Caen, forcing the Germans to prepare for an evacuation. On July 8th, with the realization that holding the city was no longer feasible, Meyer disregarded his orders and initiated the evacuation of Caen. The remnants of the 12th SS Division retreated south of the city. Operation Jupiter was launched on July 10th, while some elements of the 12th SS still held part of the line between Ederville and the Orne River. Although they put up a determined defense for a time, they were eventually overwhelmed by the sheer numerical superiority of the British forces. A young grenadier described the desperate situation in his diary, where heavy machine gun fire preceded a British infantry and tank assault. The defenders fought valiantly, but realized they were in an untenable position, and as they attempted to withdraw, they found themselves surrounded. The following day, the division was withdrawn from the front lines and sent to Potigny, located approximately 30 kilometers north of Falaise, for much-needed rest and refit. However, their respite was brief, as on July 19th, they came under attack by Anglo-Canadian forces during Operation Goodwood. Following this engagement, the division was once again withdrawn from the front lines, this time to form the mobile reserve for the ISS Panzer Corps. Subsequently, Operation Cobra was launched on July 25th, resulting in the collapse of the German defensive line and the breakout of American forces to the west. In August, the Canadian First Army launched Operation Totalize, aiming squarely at the 12th SS. In fierce combat, the Canadians advanced, reaching their objectives. However, the 12th SS Panzerjäger Battalion, despite dwindling numbers, fiercely resisted. Notable soldiers emerged, like SS Oberscharführer Rudolf Roy and Gunner Fritz Eckstein, who knocked out 26 tanks in 5 days. Despite their efforts, the 12th SS faced relentless assaults. Operation Tractable was thwarted as Meyer, with a depleted division, created a defensive line using captured Allied plans. The division, now reduced to 15 tanks, valiantly defended Hill 159. Amid continuous bombardment, they withdrew when the 2nd Canadian Division breached their lines. With escape routes narrowing, the 12th SS was tasked with holding the Falaise Gap's northern side, aiding the German 7th Army's retreat. Meyer led his men, now only 10 tanks strong, across the Dives River. By late August, the division had lost over 8,000 men but continued their crucial role in the retreat. Only unfit units retreated to Germany in September, leaving behind a small force attached to the 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich. In the Normandy battles, the 12th SS suffered immensely, with 8,569 casualties out of 20,540 men. Their resilience marked a chapter of valor amid devastating losses, epitomizing the relentless courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Thank you for joining us in today's video. We genuinely hope you found it entertaining and informative. Before you go, don't forget to explore the links in the description below for more exciting content and ways to connect with us. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to see you in our next video. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and remember to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update from us. Take care, and we'll catch you in the next one.